What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show. We are on Second City Gridiron. Follow at Second City Gridiron for all your Bears news. As the draft is complete, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And, of course, if you only get the audio-only versions, then you can like, subscribe, tell a few friends on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your content. Mac and Reed on Second City Gridiron, our second episode on this network. Of course, you could look up the great articles our cohorts write up also at Windy City Gridiron. I'm at 311 Mac, joined as always by my co-host with the most. He's got an all-orange tracksuit, not on today, but just like Brad Underwood, I know that's somewhere in his closet. He's ready to go toe-to-toe with a gorilla. He doesn't need 99 other dudes, and he's never met a vodka sauce he didn't like. He is at Ross Reed on social media. It's Ross Reed, folks.
Yeah. Where would you want to be at in that order? I mean, you probably want to be like
probably 90s. take some steam out of the gorilla first.
Yeah, do you think by like 97 the gorilla's like, you know what, I think I'm done here and I'll just take the rest of the three guys off?
Yeah, I'd take that victory. It looked like the last three guys, or you're given the chance to just run at that point or fight really dirty.
Right.
It is one of the more hilarious debates that is going on right now.
It's amazing. I love it. And I love all the videos of we
simulation of like the dummies. Oh
yeah, we need to get the kids back into school because clearly people don't understand what gorillas can do, and this is why we need more National Geographic and rest in peace Steve Irwin, but you need guys like that to teach you gorillas. They don't have a problem taking out 100 dudes. They can do it probably within ease.
The robots will do the fighting for us. I'm gonna need every James Bond ever. Jack Reacher as an Alan Richards big self, The Rock, Aaron Donald. I'm going to need the Mountain from Game of Thrones. I'm going to need some big dudes before me, like all the NFL and defensive linemen.
Yes.
Throw Grady Jarrett in there.
Yes.
Yeah, unbelievable. But that aside, we got a packed draft recap, mostly show today. Draft is complete for the Bears. We're going to go down every pick, and we'll talk about the UDFAs as well and potential offseason moves that are to come with the Bears, talk about the draft as a whole, surprises along the way as it won't be completely Bears-centric. But to begin, let's talk about it, Ross. And the draft is complete, and we're a little delayed, but now it's had time to set in. And if you've been following Second City Gridiron and followed our show, the pick was picked correctly by Ross Reed. Kudos to him. Rostradamus over here predicting the pick for the Bears. And the haters will say, Ryan Poles had a bad draft once again. But there's some potential for some studs here. And certainly you see the shift. You saw the shift on draft night and then the following days, just with the two picks alone, first numbers 1 and 2 for the Bears, that is. And how this is really shifting towards more offensive minded with some more weapons for Ben Johnson and company. And, with the pick with Loveland and Colston Loveland at number 10 overall, not moving there, the hype around this guy, it really built up, prior to the draft. And the Colts were ecstatic that the Bears were picking Loveland because then they get Tyler Warren, who I think will still have a pretty solid career. Kind of looked like a coin flip there after Banks went number 9 to the Saints. But it felt like to me that the Bears never really considered another player, as we talked about, and what we learned even more so now that the draft has sunk in a little bit, is that the Bears, put out feelers, but they weren't willing to move back for pennies on the dollar, so to speak, where they figured the value is there with this guy. They like everything that Colston Loveland brings to the table. Ryan Poles quoted his dynamic skill set. He's cited his run blocking, great motor. He's creating mismatches. He's, a comp to like Sam Laporta. If you look just directly to an offense Ben Johnson just coached, Travis Kelce, if you're trying to reach there and really thinking of this guy's ceiling at this point, there's not a ton of negatives, besides the health at this point and how he recovers from that shoulder surgery. They repaired the AC joint. His doctor said he should be cleared by training camp. And Ross, you can speak to any negatives that come to mind, but just as far as we'll go down the list, but we'll focus on Loveland for a moment here. And you were on Bears Banter with our boy Bill on draft day. But now that the pick is sat with you even longer, how are you feeling about Loveland and him, immediate impact, long-term, everything?
I was certainly fine with the pick in the moment. And I think now that I've had a chance to sit with it, I love it even more. Just because, number one, they didn't trade up, which was my biggest concern that night and going into this process, is giving up some of your premium picks to trade up for any of the guys that are on the board. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty was a guy that a lot of people thought that they would trade up for. And as much as I love Ashton Jeanty, he's an impact player, I just don't think the Bears were in a great position to give away some of the picks. And in fact, we found out they traded back in the second round to recoup even more, another second round pick, which was the smart thing to do. We'll get to that in a second. But you get a guy like Colston Loveland, and he is plug and play into your offense day one and instantly becomes a mismatch on the football field for opposing defenses. Obviously, I think the signals that Ben Johnson wants to play a lot of 12 personnel, early on with Caleb Williams. For those that don't know, that's one running back, two tight ends, two wide receivers. So you're going to see a lot of Cole Kmet on the field, mostly as your inline tight end. And then you're going to be able to move Colston Loveland around in the slot, in line, outside. Maybe he lines up in the backfield a couple times, and you try and get that young man the football any way you can and allow him to make plays. And that's exactly what he did in Michigan. He is a bona fide playmaker. He's also a guy that can rip the defense, rip the top off a little bit up the middle of the field, up the seam, and really cause a lot of stress for linebackers and safeties. So again, you're adding a really solid, big, kid's like 6'6", 250, 260 pounds, security blanket for Caleb Williams. And I think, if there was a knock on Caleb Williams last year, he did struggle with his accuracy at times. Well, it's going to be really hard to not throw the football to a guy like Colston Loveland because he does, accumulate such a large amount of area. And also, you got to foreshadow a little bit of the future. And I think we all love Cole Kmet as a Bears fan. He's had an up and down career in Chicago. But all of a sudden you start to think, is this guy going to be a fit long-term with the Bears? That's not something that we have to decide or worry about right now. I think for right now, you have two tight ends. You have two good tight ends. They're going to be on the football field together, and you have some flexibility to do some things. But also, this just simplifies everything for the quarterback, for Caleb Williams. That's exactly what you want. You want him to go for high percentage plays, to some of these bigger targets, and all of a sudden you look on the football field, Roman Dunze is a big kid, right? Above 6 feet tall. And same thing with Cole Kmet, and same thing with Colston Loveland now. DJ Moore is a little bit on the smaller side, about 6 feet, but he's still a big physical target out there. If DJ Moore is your smallest guy as a receiver on the field, and we'll talk about Luther Burden in a second, who's basically DJ Moore part 2.0, that's okay. We're doing okay. And, to kind of touch on it, everybody wants to go, let's go video game offense and let's go explosive and this and that. But you have to remember, this is still Chicago, and this is still Soldier Field, and this is still outdoors, and things still are going to get inclement November, December, hopefully into January, because hopefully we can take this thing into January. And why not take the big kid that is from Idaho and played football in Michigan, and he's going to walk into Soldier Field on a December game against the Lions or the Packers outdoors, and he's going to be just fine and able to still accumulate offense, out there. Very much like what the Kansas City Chiefs do with their current tight end situation as well. They got guys like Kelsey and Noah Gray and things like that, and they have adapted their offense over the last few years from what they used to do, which was a lot of Tyreek Hill and trying to be very explosive, on the outside.
I mean, there's no shortage of weapons when you look at it on the Loveland tip. Like you said, just a really great talent with size. You think the same basically size as Cole Kmet, and also an adept run blocker. We know that he did very well at Michigan this last season with 56 receptions and 5 touchdowns, second highest in the Big Ten behind Tyler Warren, who went to the Colts. That Idaho background is super interesting too. Growing up farming, just a tough kid all around. His favorite activity I saw with the Q&A was like rock picking, like building fences of rocks. I'm like, that'll build some muscle real quick. But it's cool for him too, just on the personal side. He hasn't been to Chicago before, so everything's going to be brand new for him. Keep him away from the Viagra Triangle, Ross. For the gold diggers. But again, like we talked about the personnel, the weapons across the board, and we will talk about their second pick in a moment. What Loveland brings is super important to the number one producer on your offense, the key to the offense succeeding. It's not Ben Johnson per se. Ben Johnson can draw up the best plays. Caleb Williams has to take that step in the second year to really throttle this Bears offense in the right direction and start picking up some wins and start putting some good numbers on the board here. So it's no shortage of weapons again. With Cole Kmet long term, we'll see. It's I feel like a recurring theme, and you'll see through the draft as we go through these picks, is creating competition within these positions, which is important for these guys to not get complacent, to me, because there's a younger guy who's going to be ready and hungry to take your spot or spell you and take the glory when you're sitting down and getting a rest, So that's a cool angle to me.
I completely agree with you. And there's a depth factor too as well, right? Like, we've seen in the past, the Bears get depleted due to injuries, and there's no guy behind them to step up. This has become a league of attrition now more than ever. Guys are bigger. Guys are faster. Guys are stronger. Guys are going to hit harder. We have a 17-game season now. It will be an 18-game season sooner than later. And then, factor in, you have to go to the playoffs and all that. And there's mini camps and there's training camps. So you need multiple bodies. You need talent at, multiple positions to be able to withstand that. And you were going into this with Cole Kmet as your tight end one, and then Smythe, was going to be your tight end number two. And Stephen Carlson was going to be tight end number three. That just wasn't going to work. So now all of a sudden, Cole Kmet is the crafty veteran as still the tight end one. Although I think Loveland will whoever, it doesn't matter what it shows up on the depth chart, because we're both going to play and start and have pretty much an equal amount of snaps. But you got younger. You got more depth at a position. You got more talent. And you got another weapon for your quarterback. That is a win all across the board.
A good guy to learn from in Cole Kmet too. Just with his size. When Cole Kmet was on his game, we've seen 3 touchdown games from Cole. It's just again an up and down season for Caleb Williams, and he's been in a couple different offenses at this point, 3 different offenses. But I really like Colston Loveland, what he brings to the table. Going to wear number 84 since Caleb will wear 18. Obviously, I like it. I can't wait to see him in the blue and orange. And then with the second pick, as I'm going down the list here at number 2, or I should say in round 2, number 39, the Bears surprised a lot of people with this pick, just based on their needs, I feel like, and their boards and all these mocks. But neither Ohio State running back was on the board, which I would have loved the Bears to pick, in my opinion. But on the offensive tip, if this world were mine, Luther Burden III went to Mizzou over Alabama and Georgia. Missouri guy, played at the juggernaut East St. Louis in high school. Explosive, really intriguing guy who can help the wide receiver core. You talked about DJ Moore, and a comp for him being DJ Moore, and Stephon Diggs was another pro comp I saw. It's 6 foot, 200-pound guy who's got 4.4 speed. A great third wide receiver option to DJ and Rome, assuming he would be, in that fight for that third spot. Maybe a punt return option as well. I'm sure as a rookie, he'll definitely be getting some special teams reps to start out. Just great after the catch. You think of how he fits into Ben Johnson's style of offense. You love the potential. You think about, again, the Detroit players that Ben Johnson played with, like Jamison Williams, if he's another option. A guy, a gadget guy who can, again, with the run after the catch, you can certainly draw up some very unique plays for him to get a ton of yardage for the Bears and just help this offense really turn the corner quickly. Were you loving the pick, Ross?
Yeah, I think this is one where I think the Bears got sniped a little bit. I think they wanted to take Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. I think that they thought he would be on the board. New England took him, and New England never met with Henderson. They didn't do any pre-draft work with him in person. I think New England was just like, we're just going to take the talent. And then the Bears were like, well, we're also going to take the talent, which is Luther Burden. If Luther Burden had came out last year, there was only one wide receiver in college football that had more receiving yards than Luther Burden that year, and that was Marvin Harrison Jr. And so if Luther Burden had came out after the 2023 season, he probably would have been in that Malik Neighbors category. He had a down year last year, but I think that was in large part due to the offense that Missouri ran. They ran a more ball-controlled offense, didn't pass as much, and his numbers kind of dwindled a little bit, and so he got dropped to the second round. Even that, a lot of people thought he would still go in the back end in the first round. So the Bears are getting a blue-chip talent in the second round, and all of a sudden, again, this goes back to the depth thing. You had depth issues last year, late in games. We were trying to rely on Keenan Allen, who's a little bit older and a little, one step behind. You had a guy like Roman Dunze, who was also rookie, being thrust into big spots. And all of a sudden, you can ease in a guy like Luther Burden, and you hit it on the head. He's going to run. There's going to be a lot of special packages for Luther Burden. He's going to line up all over the football field. He's going to line up outside. He's going to line up inside in the slot. He's going to line up in the backfield a lot of times. You're going to see him come in motion. He's going to get some jet sweeps. Ben Johnson said in his press conference when he got the job, no block, no rock. And I think that's a huge thing when you look at the wide receivers and the tight ends you have, but also he's foreshadowing, I need to try and get the football to these guys quickly around the line of scrimmage in space, and then your teammates need to help you get down the field and get more yards. Luther Burden is the perfect kind of wide receiver screen, situation that he ran so well with the Lions with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and guys like that. And all of a sudden you look up and you got a screen for Luther Burden, and who's in front of you blocking? You got Darnell Wright in front of you. You got Colston Loveland in front of you. You got Cole Kmet in front of you. You got Roman Dunze in front of you. And then you can see a young man like that really just take off and bust one open for like 50, 60 yards.
Such a great athlete. He was a multi-sport athlete coming out of high school. Again, that East St. Louis connection. We know that they're winning state championships every year, just producing some monsters. And yeah, with Luther Burden, that production, the lack of production this last year does not bother me. I think if anything, it helped. That the Bears were able to take him now at this position in the second round. I really, having sat on it, it was certainly surprising. But again, the options that Ben Johnson is going to have between Loveland and Luther, some great young rookies coming in there to help this team. And does that interest you, seeing him on special teams, maybe returning punts or getting him on KOR?
It wouldn't hurt, right? I think, when you go into training camp, you can certainly try him out there. The Bears did bring in Devin Duvernay, who's the wide receiver from Jacksonville, who I think will be your number one, special teams guy. But, we've seen the kickoff rule got moved again this year. They're going to try and force teams to kick even more into that landing zone because there's an extra 5-yard penalty if you do a touchback. So you're going to need two guys out there at the same time. I would certainly put Luther Burden out there because he does have the speed and explosiveness, and I put him in a competition in camp. It doesn't hurt. I mean, right now you can have out there Burden and let Duvernay fight it out because if Duvernay can't give you anything on special teams, or if he does get beaten out on special teams by the rookie, he don't really offer you anything else. You already got Omade Zacchaeus, and then you've got a couple other guys out there as well. So I would certainly let him try it out. They even signed Miles Boykin as well. So there's some back end depth to where I would force the hand of some of those other guys, those vets that you brought in, to see if they can beat out the rookie. Because if not, then you should give that roster to somebody else.
But look out for when the Bears are on offense, some screens, some jet sweeps. Like, he is got the speed, and he's ready to make an impact, I think. So I like the pick there. And then we saw the first trade from the Bears when they after this pick, where the Bills traded out of that they traded for that 41st pick. The Bears got more picks in the second round with 56 and 62. and a 4th rounder. And so with that 56th pick, the Bears went offensive tackle, and Azie Trapeilo, who is a big boy, 6'8", out of BC, played 10 games at offensive tackle, at left tackle, I should say, in 2022. And then he moved to right tackle, primarily played offensive tackle. The rest of his career, he was playing right tackle. Some young blood on the offensive line. Again, that depth that we talked about with Braxton Jones' potential to miss time with injury is a plus. Everything I saw as far as what Ryan Poles and other scouts were saying about Trapeilo was just his ability to pass block really well, just balance for a 6'8" guy, struggling with leverage when you're that height. It's tough. It'll be trial by fire, of course, too, when you're blocking the, Aiden Hutchinsons of the world and guys like that. But there's no doubt that he can fit into this line, and certainly in big sets, another big body is important to have, maybe on gadget plays where they're thrown to offensive linemen. We haven't seen that from the Bears in a long time. Maybe they throw him in there, but as a prospect for someone to build upon with Ben Johnson and Poles and company, what did you think of drafting an offensive lineman with that 3rd pick for the Bears?
Yeah, I mean, they needed some tackle depth badly, right? We've seen, you look at your 2 starting tackles right now. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright have both struggled with some injury issues, especially Braxton Jones. And so you didn't really have a good power swing guy for if any of those guys went down, whether it's a quarter or a handful of plays or 1 to 2 games. And I think we saw Caleb Williams last year take the brunt of not having that depth. He got sacked, almost broke the rookie record for most sacks for a quarterback. And you still don't know where Kieran is at, that they drafted from last year. He's kind of still your project guy who, also has some injury issues as well. So, Trapeilo comes in as a more polished guy to where if you need him in a pinch day one, he can help out. I think it's going to be interesting to see, do they keep him at the right side? Do they try and get him some snaps at the left side, try to get used to that? Or let's say hypothetically, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, but Braxton Jones gets injured or he's not completely ready for at the beginning of training camp. And I think Ryan Poles even hinted at this. Do you move Darnell Wright to the left side for a little bit and allow Trapeilo to stay on the right side, and then you go that route? So it's going to be interesting to see how they coach this into mini camp and where these guys lined up, and especially in the training camp. The hope, obviously, is that Braxton Jones can stay healthy this year, and then they have a decision to make on him at the end of the season. Are you comfortable with Braxton Jones and paying him $20 to potentially $25 million a year, or do you maybe want to move Trapeilo to the left side or move Darnell Wright to the left side and have Trapeilo to the right side? Either way, the theme here so far in this draft, you needed talent and you needed depth because this roster was devoid of that, and that's what they got here in this pick.
Yeah, as you said, it certainly sticks to that theme of building depth and having competition. With Kieran, who was a project guy last year, and he's still young. He just didn't get a ton of opportunity, save for when Braxton Jones was out. So curious to see Trapeilo and what he can do as making an impact as a rookie. And then the number 62 pick for the Bears went with their first defensive player in the draft, and Shamar Turner, who was a solid defensive tackle with Texas A&M. He's got that versatility on the line. He's played all over, but he projects as a 3 technique. You figure he learns from Grady Jarrett. You figure he learns from Andrew Billings, and a big brother type in Gervon Dexter. He's going to learn quick how to help make contributions to make this defense better. He's a run stuffer. Makes a lot of sense at this point in the draft to me. When the Bears drafted him, I certainly thought that, later in the draft, they could have targeted a guy like this with the 3 picks that they had in that second round. So I like how he fits in. What'd you think of the pick, Ross?
Yeah, that's it. Again, more depth, right? More depth. You want to rotate some guys in. You want to be able to stop the run a little bit better. When Billings went out last year, they were absolutely awful at stopping the run. And their linebackers got smoked because, you look at a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, he's kind of lost a step out there. And then being able to stop the run, TJ Edwards as well. So they want to be able to shore up that spot and rotate guys more. I think you'll see guys like Grady Jarrett and Gervon Dexter Sr. even play more defensive end in a Dennis Allen scheme and allow them to use their pass rushing skills to get up the field. And then you can rotate Turner in there with Billings as well. So this gives them more variety, more options. This also means that you're not completely reliant on Montez Sweat to play so many snaps a game. He also got pretty tired and pretty beaten up at the end of the season last year, and his production dropped as well. So I think with these big defensive linemen, you want to be able to keep these guys fresh, and you want to be able to keep them rotated in. Imagine you got to go out there and try and slow down Jahmyr Gibbs for 25 to 30 touches a game, right? You need these guys to rotate in and be fresh. And same thing with like Josh Jacobs in Green Bay and some of those other guys.
Yeah, you figure you just hit it on the head with the running back powers in the conference alone, and in the division alone, I should say. It's tough sledding, and you got to be able to spell those vet guys. So I like how Turner fits in there, and that versatility. He can play end as well. He's not going to get after the quarterback, but you don't need that. You needed to really turn around how this defensive line was able to stop the run, which they were, a turnstile at many times this last season. And then, in the fourth round, came another defensive player with the Bears, going with Ruben Hippoly, the second trade back from 109 to 132. Can't forget Luther Burden is the third. But good to have depth at linebacker. When you look at the positives for this pick, a linebacker special teams guy, 4.4 speed. He played in the Big Ten at Maryland. He led led Maryland in tackles last year. Scouts talk about, his ability to plug holes in the run and defend passes well. Ryan Poles said, quote, "This guy who's extremely smart, tough, adds to the team speed. He can fly, very active. He likes the combination of speed and intelligence." What say you, Ross?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest question mark of their draft. And I think they got sniped on the running back situation. I think they wanted to take it back here. You saw they traded back after Tootin went off the board, and then even like Scatterbo went off the board. Ruben's fast. He certainly is fast. He's got a lot of speed out there. He should be able to contribute right away in special teams. You just tell him, Ruben, there's the football in the air. Just go run and go get it. I think on an actual defense within the structure, he's going to struggle a little bit. His tackling skills are not the best. Again, he's got speed, but a lot of times with speed as a linebacker, you struggle to take the angle that you need, and you get a little bit out of position. So he's going to have to learn the role there. I know that the coaching staff loved him when they met with him. They loved him as a person, but I think this is a little bit of a panic pick, and this is probably my biggest question mark. But with that said, let's say, he's a fourth round pick, right? Let's say he becomes a career special teams guy. That's just awesome on special teams. I think for a fourth round pick, that's a win. That's a win right there, especially as we see special teams evolving. And, with these new kickoff rules and things like that, you need these guys to be able to go out there. If he can make some plays and make tackles and even a couple forced fumbles, that's a win for a pick. So that's where I see him excelling at long term and short term, is just using that speed on special teams and going right towards the football and trying to make a play.
Yeah, there were, touching on what led into that decision was just how many running backs had went before. And there were something like 6 in the first 2-3 rounds alone. And it put the Bears in that position where, you figure anybody else on their board who warranted a pick at that point had been gone. So I like that. Exactly. He's just a football guy, and that he will have a nose for the football and certainly will contribute to special teams right away. And then, hey, with Noah Sewell sliding into that starting position this year, or if Tremaine Edmonds misses time, then you have the depth there for this guy to fill in pretty nicely. I like what he saw in playing at a Big Ten school like Maryland, playing against some good competition. Those are the positives. It was a head scratcher. The head scratcher for me came after this. To me, was Zah Frasier from UTSA in the 5th round. He's an older corner out of college. He's 25 years old. He's 1 season as a starter. Special teams and depth at that position, I would say, as far as corner is concerned in that secondary. But I will say he's got great speed and size for a corner. He's 6'3". He runs a 4.36, just incredible. Ryan Poles said, quote, "He's long, press corner that can come in and compete." He got a text from Al Harris in February saying we can develop him. Al Harris, a guy who scouted him pretty heavily and was real high on him. What do you think about a guy like Zah from a smaller pool, if you will, smaller school.
Yeah, he's probably my favorite pick that they had of these middle round guys
Love
because
it, Zah.
yeah, I love Zah. Look, I mean, for him to be 6'3" and have that speed, that 4.36 speed, you're going to need those longer, faster, athletic corners. A lot of times you look at the draft picks and you put the age, and as these guys a little older, you say that's a weakness, that's against them. In his case, I actually think that helps him. I think he's going to be able to come in day one and pick up things faster and learn from Harris a lot faster. And I actually think he's going to be out there and see a lot more playing time than you think. Obviously, Jalen's your number one guy. He's going to be the guy that, especially in the Dennis Allen offense, is very different from the Matt Eberflus. In the Dennis Allen defense, this is very different from the the other defense that the Bears had. In this Dennis Allen defense, your number one corner, which is Jalen Johnson, he's going to be following around the number one wide receiver a lot more. I know they talked about Kyler Gordon potentially playing some outside. Maybe. I don't put too much stock in that. I think Kyler Gordon is one of the three best nickels in the league, and if that's the case, you should keep him right there. But listen, we saw Tyreek Stevenson struggle. He has ups and downs last year, and Tyrell Smith is a little bit of a smaller guy. This is where I think Frasier can come in and really compete with some playing time, looking at some of those twos and threes. A lot of times in this current age of the NFL, your number two or even your number one, they're in the slot now. And some of the other guys are out on the outside. So I actually think Frasier can be out there. He also has amazing ball skills. So he really goes out there and attacks the football and tries to take it away. And, that's what Chicago Bears football on defense has been since we've been around, since we were born. Go get the football, go take away the football. This is one of my favorite picks of the draft for them.
I like it, Ross, and Al Harris would certainly agree with you. It seems like, everything that I've read up about Zah is that for months that, Harris had kind of been conspiring if he fell at this point to the Bears that they would go for him. I like the size, and I like how he performed at the combine, basically an unconventional path, and a little older at 24 or 25, but yeah, we'll see with the depth how it shakes out come training camp. And then Luke Newman, that is, came from Michigan State, interior guard. Ryan Pohl said, quote, physical, tough player, can play guard and center, excited about developing him, showed versatility, showed he can play the center position as well, which was key. Good depth. And then I'll skip ahead too. You can double down on this, Ross, to round 7. The last pick that the Bears had, they hadn't had a running back, so they waited till the very last pick of theirs to get Kyle Monangai with the final pick. If I'm saying that wrong, Ross, just correct me. With the final pick for the Bears in the draft. They're all new names. Yeah. But they get an all Big Ten guy, running back out of Rutgers, who, waited, or I should say led the conference in rushing the last 2 seasons. He's a physical runner, great pass blocker. The guys who are like sub 6 feet, I really like their physicality. Ryan Pohl said, quote, physical, tough runner, high personal character, can come in and compete, like the contact balance, pass pro really good. The pass pro blocking was he'll go out and hit a guy in the mouth.
Yeah.
And then, I feel like super comparable, obviously a different regime, but super comparable stats to like a David Montgomery and the yards after contact and just his production last year at college. They could very well have a steal here. And when, you need a sort of 1-2 punch, similar guys like DeAndre Swift too. We hope that DeAndre Swift can do well as the lead back, but it's important to spell him. So it looks like, you got a steal here in Kyle.
Yeah, I think if this was a different draft and the running back depth wasn't where it was, Kyle probably goes in the middle rounds in like that 3rd to 5th round area. That's the kind of talent that he has. He's not an explosive guy. He's not going to run away from the defense and rip off a 70 to 80 yard run. That's not what you need him for. To be honest with you, we've seen guys like DeAndre Swift do that. And we just talked about how Luther Burden is probably going to take some snaps in the backfield. I think what Cal Monangai brings to the table, he's what I call a middle reliever. There are spots in the game where it's usually in that second quarter, it's in that third quarter. You need to kind of spell your RB1, right? Give him a little bit of a break. You need a guy to come in for a series or two and not get the quarterback killed. He knows the offense. He can run hard for some yards, and he can help wear down the defense. So by the time you get to the fourth quarter, you can really put the football game. You can put the football game away. And so I think that's what he is. I think he's a middle reliever guy. To steal a baseball term, I think he comes in the middle of these games and he kind of gives some fresh legs and he runs hard. And he smacks some defenses in the mouth, and they're like, well, damn, now we got to deal with this guy now, and things like that. The pass protection. Very, very important. This entire draft was really about, to me, how can we help Caleb Williams? And they did that, going back to the Luke Newman pick, depth. It's all about depth. You got some older guards, you got an older center, from Tooney to Dahlman to Jackson. You need depth on that line. And what better way for a guy like Luke Newman, who's played tackle and now switch to guard, what better person learn from than Joe Tooney, who's got Super Bowl rings and has been an all-pro in this league, who's also played tackle and guard, and maybe you could develop him into a solid starter long-term after those guys leave.
Yeah, I obviously we've harped on it a lot as far as this new era of Ben Johnson and flipping the switch to being, bottom 5 of the league in points for and just running yards, passing yards. This is how you do it when you build this depth up and guys who are very talented and young and hungry. I think, given what the Bears were presented with, they did pretty well. I know you're not a fan of putting grades on it, but it's kind of an A-B range if you look at it on its face. And I think, Loveland, we'll see how he pans out, certainly, and Luther Burden, those first two. But with these late round potential steals, some guys will just be, special teamers. That's just the nature of the game. But would you like to chime in on a grade, perhaps, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to put a grade on it, you give it like a solid, right? You give it like a solid B, right? Like, and it could fluctuate in either direction depending on how these guys too. I think the most important thing we talked about, and we've talked about this for weeks, is they need to come away with this with multiple starters and multiple impact guys. And I think that's the most important thing that they did do, right? You found a starting tight end, you found a starting wide receiver, and you found I think Frasier started corner. And I also think that, you found in Turner, you found a starting defensive tackle and potentially a starting offensive tackle in Trullo. But I think at the beginning, your Lovelands, your Burden, teams play 3 wide receivers now. I think the first 3 wide receivers to me are considered starters. So that's what they did. They found multiple starters in the draft. Now let's see if some of these guys can be impact players, can be all pro players. Loveland has all pro talent and Burden has all pro talent. And, even a guy like Turner, I don't know if he has all pro capability, but I think he has, high upside. I love the Frasier pick. I think that young man can be a really, really good corner for a long time. We saw what Al Harris did with 2 corners in Dallas, and he was able to take those guys to basically all pro level. So I like the draft. Let's see now what Ben Johnson can do when he gets them all out there. Hopefully everybody can stay healthy. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think what I love is they didn't reach for anything. They didn't go out there and panic and, overcompensate. They realized that this is going to be a process over the course of a few years. Let's just take really good football players where we're at. If it's not there, we don't like it where it is. Let's come back down a little bit, recoup some more picks, right? Now they also picked up a 4th rounder for next year. And let's see where it is, because now they have some flexibility. I still think they're in the market for running back. I think they can sign a guy like Nick Chubb if you want to. I don't know what he's got left in him. But there's a lot of rumors out there, a lot of smoke about Kenneth Walker Jr., pulling him away from Seattle. And maybe you use one of those picks from next year, the 4th, 5th round, 6th round pick, and you trade for him and, again, add more depth.
I don't know if Nick Chubb fits in. That was going to be a quick question as we're running out of show. But obviously it's been hyped that he's out with the Browns and being courted by some NFC North teams. And I don't know how much he has on the football field left in the tank, but how he bounces back from injuries and comes back to squatting like 600 pounds and doing 50-inch verticals is just astonishing. And kudos to him and his doctors and his team because when he is healthy and stays healthy, that's a big knock on wood. He can just really pave lanes and blow by guys with a blend of speed and size. If he didn't have the injuries, he'd be in that conversation with Derrick Henry for one of those most productive running backs out there. But, I did want to ask you, Ross, with UDFAs, if there's anybody that moved the meter for you. I haven't really looked up, any of the names at this point that have moved the needle, so to speak. So if you have a brief thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, some cool names like literally on the list, right? You got guys like
a cool name,
Major Burns and Power Echols and
Major Burns.
Guys like that. Gio Paez is on the list. I'll be completely honest with you. None of the names really stood out to me. I think that's actually a good thing. In the past, the Bears would bring in a big litany of undrafted guys because they didn't have a lot of depth on their roster. As the roster gets a little bit better with the depth, you don't need as many of these undrafted free agents. And a lot of the bigger name undrafted free agents are going to some of the other teams where they think that they can compete more at. So I think, if anything, Power Echols, could be a practice squad guy that, maybe could dress a couple times a year in place of special teams and stuff like that. Major Burns was not a very good safety at LSU. He actually had really struggled, especially in the end of the season, the playoffs and stuff like that. So I don't think anybody really stands out to me there. It's probably likely most of these guys, if any of them, won't make the roster, but you might see one or two make a practice squad.
Practice squad guys, potentially. Yeah. Major Burns is a terrific roast battle name. There you go. And I think that's all I had for Bears, Ross. About Chubster. So now, at this point, we'll see what the Bears are trying to do. This is obviously dictated the rest of their offseason to see if they want to add any depth, but they're pretty set with this, with their draft picks, certainly, and how they fit in going forward. It's very Ben Johnson heavy. I liked it, on the note of grades. I think that certainly it's a pass, not a fail. But we shall see where these guys fit in. And Ross, we've come to the end of April. You know what that means.
What's that mean? It's going to be May.
It's going to be May.
I like May.
The millennial in me just was.
You knew it, Ross. You knew what was coming. You got May the 4th be with you. You got the Kentucky Derby, Cinco de Mayo. Well, I gotta get you out of here. And you got a Kentucky Derby horse favorite?
As a graduate of Columbia College with a journalism degree, there is a course running this weekend called journalism, and I will be putting quite a few dollars on journalism, because how can I not? How can you not stay true to yourself? Go journalism. I'll be in Denver this weekend, a little boys trip, and we will find ourselves a nice bar area to watch the 2 minutes of the Kentucky Derby.
Look at you. Fun times in Denver to celebrate the coming of May for us. Well, thanks everybody for watching in on YouTube, and thanks to all the listeners on Spotify, iTunes. Remember to like, subscribe, tell a few friends, follow us follow me at The Real Evan Mack, follow Ross at Ross Reed, follow at Second City Gridiron for all the breaking Bears news and Bears coverage, the great programming we have here. Everybody have a great week and a great weekend ahead. For now, we say deuces. So long, everybody.
Peace.